Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire Magazine, the premier inspirational magazine for women since 2006. I'm also the 6-time best-selling publisher behind the boutique publishing company InspiredLivingPublishing.com, which is dedicated to giving visionary female entrepreneurs, coaches, and health practitioners a voice and a high-profile media and publishing platform to share their wisdom, enhance their expert status, and bring their brand out of the shadows. I'm so excited to share that our next sacred anthology, Midlife Transformation, Redefining Love, Life, Health, and Success, will be released on March 14th. You can meet the authors and learn more about this transformational book at midlifetransformationbook.com. All of my brands, including this show, are dedicated to inspiring women to live their best lives. So welcome. I have a question. Do you feel easily overwhelmed by life and maybe even the emotions of others? Have you been told time and time again that you're too sensitive? Well, my friend, you may be a highly sensitive woman. And if so, it's time to see that as the sacred gift that it is and not as a weakness. It's time to unlock your sensitive superpowers by nourishing your mind, body, and spirit. Today, Cortney Chaite, founder of thehighlysensitivebadass.com, joins me to share how she went from a hot mess to a highly sensitive badass and completely transformed her life, her body, and her business by embracing her gifts instead of being ashamed of them. Cortney Chaite is a coach, author, speaker, and founder of thehighlysensitivebadass.com, who inspires highly sensitive people to uncover and own their inner badass. An expert in health, self-care, and environment, Cortney brings training and experience that back up the strategies and support she provides to navigate the bridge between inner and outer worlds. And this is where so many highly sensitive people struggle. Her own struggles and journey as a highly sensitive person fuels her passion for helping women tap into their unique feminine brilliance through divine self-care so that they can live their highest purpose and reach their full potential in every area of their lives. Cortney's popular programs include the Highly Sensitive Lightworker and Weight Loss for Sensitive Women Who Love to Eat. Welcome, Cortney.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today.
Well, you know that your story, your transformation was truly inspirational to me when we first met because I've witnessed it. I witnessed the process. Maybe not the long ago process of the body transformation because I've only known you as this, fit woman. And when you told me your story, I'm like, what is she talking about? And then I saw the pictures and you and I had personal conversations and I was like, talk about a life transformation. And you share a lot of it in your ebook, how I went from hot mess to highly sensitive badass. But for our listeners that are here today, let's talk about that. Let's talk about when you felt overwhelmed by life, defeated by life, and everything was falling apart.
Yeah, I'd love to. So where I can start from the beginning, but I guess what I'll do is I'll start from when I realized that I was highly sensitive, because that was the biggest turning point for me. And I had, my whole life really didn't understand myself. I felt like I was different somehow. I felt like there was something kind of weird about me. And I would look at other people and I'd think, why do things seem much easier for them? And why are things seem so hard for me? And I felt things so deeply. I really felt, as an adult, really overwhelmed very, very frequently. And I either felt like I was like one big feeling going through my life, just feeling everything and overwhelmed by my feelings, or for a while I really just shut all of it down and was completely out of touch with my feelings. So there are different phases that I went through as a sensitive person, kind of navigating and trying to cope with it and really not understanding it at all. And when I first heard the term the highly sensitive person, which was actually not coined by me, Dr. Elaine Aron is the one that wrote the book, The Highly Sensitive Person. And when I first heard that term, I just knew, I was like, I think that might be me, and that explains everything. And sure enough, reading through the traits, there's a test you can take on my website, thehighlysensitiveBadass.com, and you can find out if you would be considered a highly sensitive person. And when I read that, everything just fell into place. Like a huge piece of my life puzzle felt like it had been solved, and I realized that it was a trait that I was born with and that 20% of the population has, and that the way that I had been living my life was in complete opposition to how I needed to be living my life as a sensitive person, which explained so many of my struggles of, feeling really overwhelmed by life, overwhelmed by feelings, caring so deeply about things, my sensitivity to, or just my appreciation of like beauty in the world, of music, of art, of nature, feeling really connected to people, and kind of wanting to almost connect to their soul and not so much their like human part. And if you're kind of a sensitive person, you may understand that. And it really did explain so much for me, and it was a big pivotal part for me in my transition from moving out of, kind of overwhelm all the time, which is what I describe as my hot mess, to being empowered by it and really understanding it. And that was a big transition for me.
And there's so many listening who may not have heard that term before, that phrase before, but are saying, oh, my God, that's me. That's how I've moved through life. And what I love about the work you're doing, Cortney, is you're giving them permission to embrace their uniqueness for the gift that it is. Because, like you said earlier, you walked through life thinking something was wrong with you because you didn't have any way to reframe that thought, right?
Right.
So now I look at the transformation because I've read your story on the site, and we've had personal conversations. And not only, as I said earlier, did you come out of overwhelm, for the most part, because we're all human, we all have those moments, right? But you transformed your body, you transformed how you show up in your life, your relationships. Let's talk about how you started taking baby steps. Like, what was the first steps after you had the awareness that, yes, that's who I am, it makes sense now? What was your first steps to start to heal all of this and embrace all aspects of yourself?
Yeah, good question. So it was actually kind of funny looking back. It wasn't funny in the moment, but so I heard the term the highly sensitive person, and I and other people may relate to this. Before I really understood what that was and what that meant for me, I had been going through my life noticing where I felt like I was failing, like where the things that I was struggling with were so obvious to me, and I kept trying to fix those things about myself. And so most of my life was spent trying to fix the parts of myself that just felt really difficult. I was like, if I could only just find the solution, then everything will be better. And so when I found the term the highly sensitive person, it really shed a light on so many of the areas where I had been struggling. And I thought for a minute, like, oh, great, now I can find a cure. And as soon as I realized that there is no cure to my sensitivity, you were born this way, and it is part of who I was, I went into deep, I kind of became a bit of a victim around this because I didn't want to accept it. I was like, no, there has to be a solution. I have to fix this about myself. This isn't okay to be this way. I don't want to be this way. And so I really went into a bit of a depression for a while around this, feeling kind of like, why me? Why am I the one who has to deal with this? And it was a really negative headspace for a while. But as soon as I really sat with it for a bit, and I got to a place where I decided I can either accept this about myself and learn to live with it, learn to love it, and maybe something great can happen because of this, Or I can just live in victimhood and denial and not accept this part of myself and be miserable for the rest of my life. And that didn't seem like it was a really good option. So I decided that I would really embrace it. And so the first step for me was really accepting that this is who I am and learning how to love myself as a sensitive person. And as soon as I was able to accept it, that's when I actually could take my first baby step, which was self-care, because I had really railed against that. I just didn't want to take the time to take care of myself. And I also thought taking care of myself sounded really boring. Like I would have to go to the gym every day, and I would have to eat kale all the time. And I think our typical ideas of healthy lifestyle are, it doesn't work for everyone. Not everyone is really excited to make those lifestyle changes. But what I didn't realize is that self-care would actually become this really pleasurable thing for me, and that it's not, there's so many ways that we can take care of ourselves that are really enjoyable. Like for me, just the idea of listening to music, that's actually self-care. Taking walks in nature, that's self-care. If you're an artist, doing your art, taking photographs, writing, having a great conversation with a friend, those are all forms of self-care, because I look at self-care as energy management and what really raises your energy and your vibration level. And so anything that does that, I consider self-care. So as soon as I reframed that and I started diving into all the things that made me feel really good, that was when I started to really kind of unlock my badass, I guess. I started to feel like I had empowerment over this, and I felt really different, and I started to feel really great, and it was a really sharp contrast to how I had been feeling before.
And I love your definition of self-care, because that's always been the area of struggle in my life, which I've been pretty transparent about with my followers. And it wasn't until I started reframing what that meant, because I used to compare what others did for self-care, and those didn't tickle my fancy. So when we come back from our break, Cortney, I want to dive deeper into that, because it's such an important topic. And we'll be back in a moment with Cortney Chaite of the HighlySensitiveBadass.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Hey, America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America in your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I am your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Cortney Chaite of the HighlySensitiveBadass.com. And right before the break, we were talking about self-care, and Cortney shared her definition, which paraphrases about finding what gives you joy, finding what feeds your soul, and your term energy management. I love that, Cortney, because really isn't that what it's about? raising our vibration physically, emotionally, and spiritually so that we can live our best lives.
Exactly. Yeah, and Abraham Hicks, if you're familiar, I'm sure I know you are, has a really great breakdown of the 22 emotions, and they have this left side of the column where 1 through 7 are these really high vibe feelings, joy, gratitude, contentment, happiness, and then the left side and the right side of the column are some of the other vibrations you can be experiencing, the feelings and emotions, anger, boredom, and we feel all of these as people. But it was really interesting because when you are managing your energy and you're doing more things that really lift your vibration, you're really living in that the place of joy, the place of gratitude, the place of contentment and happiness, and it raises the vibration of the planet. And so it's really important to look at your energy management in those terms and using self-care in thinking about it in that way of like, what is going to make you feel really good? What is going to give you energy? Because highly sensitive people really go through life getting drained very, very, very easily because we get very overstimulated by our environment so easily, by people, by conversations. We get drained by noises. So there's a lot of environmental stimulation that can drain us. And so it's really crucial for us to work on generating positive energy and getting into that really good feeling place. And so self-care really is just about generating positive energy that's going to help you feel your very best.
So true. And as I shared a moment ago, for me, I'm not a gym person, though I did just go back to the gym 2 days ago. Yay!
Yay!
But that is not my natural set point, right? For me, self-care is some of the things that you named. It's being, for me, being really quiet, listening to meditation music, being with family, going for a walk, listening to joyful speakers that have a high vibration and really bring that sense of joy and high vibration. Those are the things that are self-care to me. Now, I believe that we have certain areas in our life that we have to work on. For me, it's the physical self-care. I know I need to incorporate exercise in order to be healthy. So that's why I'm back at the gym. But it's not my natural set point to do that.
Yeah.
Have you discovered that, too, that we all have natural set points? Like someone might know how to take care of themselves fully emotionally and spiritually but struggle with the physical like me, or vice versa. Have you found that in your work with clients?
I have. I think it's very true for everybody. And we have things that come very naturally easy for us. That some of us maybe find meditation to be so joyful that it's not difficult to sit quietly and meditate. For other people, it's incredibly hard to even consider the idea of meditating. So in some ways, we do have to look at what might be best for us and take that extra step to take action in that direction. For you, it's going to the gym. For me, it's actually also sometimes working out. I have found really joyful ways of working out that make me feel good. So there's a lot of choices in that category. But for me, meditation does not come very naturally. I have a very active mind. I have a very high energy, and it's really hard for me to sit still. I was diagnosed with ADHD at a young age, and the idea of sitting still for just like a couple of minutes to me felt like torture. So I think that we definitely have to look at the things that come naturally to us, and then also think of what might be beneficial for us, and try to find a way to fit it into our lives that does work for us. So yeah.
Well, we have that in common too, because for so many years, and I'm a little older than you, the word meditation would bring up this, oh my God, I'll never be able to do that because, I'm on the go. And I realized it was because I was defining what meditation meant by comparing it to what others do.
Yeah.
And I realized probably about 2 years ago, and I find that it's no coincidence that my business, my life really expanded and grew when I learned to redefine meditation. So for me, I'm like you, Cort. I can't sit and, do the Om and listen to music. It's not how I'm wired. But I realized that putting on beautiful music and coloring in a mandala coloring book is meditation.
Yeah, it is.
Sitting there doing my angel cards with a candle lit and saying my affirmations, that is meditation.
Exactly.
And when I got that and I redefined what it means for me, everything changed. And now I'm not triggered by that word of feeling like, oh, I'm one of those that can never meditate.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share that because I'm sure there's someone listening who would really want to embrace meditation, maybe have the same blocks that I had for many years, thinking that they'll never be able to. So I'm so glad that you defined it as find what works for you.
Exactly. Yeah, and that I think with physical fitness specifically, because it is really important to take care of our bodies. I tend to look at self-care very holistically, where you're literally taking care of your body, which is your vessel, and you want that to thrive because that's what's carrying you around the world every day. And so I also look at it as nourishment of your soul and then nourishment of your mind also, and what your mindset is and your thought patterns. So when you think of physical fitness with your body, it's been a real struggle for me because I was always very athletic and I loved sports because for me, in a way, when you're enjoying what you're doing, it is meditation. Anything that gets you in the present moment is meditation. And, tennis, I love tennis because I'm right there in the moment playing tennis, and it's great. But as soon as I got out of school, the idea of going to the gym just was like the most painful thought in the world to me. And so I didn't do anything, and I really suffered for it. So, and, I would try a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but there's so many movement forms out there, and really finding the one that you love can be incredibly liberating. And for me, I love to dance and I love music, so I love to do anything, any kind of dance fitness for me. There's a great practice out there called NIA, N-I-A, and that is so wonderful. It's really liberating. And so, there is something out there, and I think sometimes we think we have to do it one way because that's what other people do, but it's really important to really blaze your own trail and find what works best for you.
I just giggled. I got a soul giggle when you said NIA because about 8 years ago, I live in a small rural community, and about 8 years ago when Aspire was a print mag, I was sponsoring an event, and one of the free workshops offered at that was a NIA workshop, and I had never heard of it. And I was sitting on the floor. I wouldn't get up, right? I was sitting on the floor, my little bum's wiggling like, oh, I could feel it. And someone said, Linda, get up there. I'm like, no, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. And they said, you don't need to.
Right.
And I got up there, and do you know, I've waited 8 years wishing that would come to my area because it's the one, and I've seen Zumba, I've seen, watched other ones. That is the only one, Courtney, and I forgot about it till you brought it up, that touched me at a soul core level, like I felt it.
Yeah. People have cried in their first class. If it really hits home for you, it can be a very transformative moment. It's pretty
well,
cool.
If in that small 9-minute free workshop demonstration, if it touched me that deeply, I can imagine what it would experience. So I think I am going to go online again. So everything is a seed, and see if maybe it is now in this area within a driving distance.
And you can travel to find it. There's some great studios, and there are weekend workshops and things like that. So, if there's a will, there's a way.
That's so true. And here's something I did to incorporate the physical, because I know I need that because I spend so much time on my spiritual and emotional growth, is I bought a rebounder, and I'm looking at it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's in my office, and, some days I have lots of radio shows and client calls, and I get on the rebounder before a call, and it just helps me reinvigorate my energy for the day. It's fun. I feel like a little kid bouncing on this thing, so it's joyful, and that's one of the tools that I've incorporated to tie joy into the thought of exercise.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that idea. That makes me realize that I want to get my rebounder out, too. It's in the corner downstairs, and I haven't used it forever. But it's such a great, quick way to reset your energy. It's such a good idea.
Well, what I want to talk
about... For those of you who don't know what a rebounder is, it's just a mini trampoline that lives inside your house.
Yeah, and it fits perfectly. And like you, I had it stored away, and I brought it up when I was on my holiday break and put it here. Mine's about 3 feet across. It's fun. And when it's there in front of you in your office, you automatically use it, I think, because it's staring at you, making you feel guilty if you don't use it. So what I want to talk about, and then we'll go over to break and dive deeper,
Okay.
Someone could be listening right now, and they're like, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm a highly sensitive badass or a highly sensitive person. So let's take our break now because I don't want to interrupt the flow. And then I want to have you give some of the signs that would help them recognize. And if they want to go deeper into the signs, I invite everyone, please go to thehighlysensitivebadass.com because Cortney has a great quiz there. But for today's conversation, she's going to share some of the signs to help you recognize if these are your gifts. And we'll be back in a moment with Cortney Chaite of thehighlysensitivebadass.com.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you an empath? Have you been called highly sensitive, empathic, or intuitive? You, my friend, may be a highly sensitive badass. It's time to embrace this as a gift so you can unlock your sensitive superpowers, nourish your mind, body, and spirit, and show up as your greatest and most badass sensitive self. If you're a healer, lightworker, coach, or caregiver feeling overwhelmed by your sacred gifts, Cortney Chaite, writer, speaker, and mentor for highly sensitive badasses, can show you how to tap into your feminine brilliance through divine self-care so you can live your highest purpose and reach your full potential. Visit highlysensitivebadass.com to learn more about Cortney's highly sensitive lightworker and weight loss for sensitive women programs. While you're there, take a quick test to discover if you're a highly sensitive person.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Cortney Chaite, and we're talking about what it means to be a highly sensitive person, how to recognize the signs to know if that is you so that you can embrace these parts of yourself and move forward and become a highly sensitive badass. So, Cortney, what are some of the signs that women may be able to recognize immediately?
All right. So I actually have my little list here because I sometimes go by memory, and that doesn't always work.
Oh, I know that
well.
feeling.
So people who are highly sensitive. So first of all, what that means is your nervous system is more sensitive than someone who would be considered non-highly sensitive. So it's almost as though you are like tuned into everything in your environment around you. You're really tuned into other people's energy, and it can it really truly is a gift, but it can also be overwhelming and draining. So I'll go through some of the list here. So people who are highly sensitive are very aware of the subtleties in their environment. Other people's moods may affect you very greatly. That is so me. You might be very sensitive to pain. you might need to find yourself withdrawing if you have a very busy day. You might want to just get in bed or go into a darkened room, and a lot of people who are sensitive need a lot of time by themselves, which actually does not mean that you're necessarily introverted. It just means you need a lot of recovery time to regain your energy that you've lost throughout your day. Some of you may be very sensitive to the effects of caffeine or alcohol. Some of you may be very overwhelmed by things like bright lights, strong smells, coarse fabrics, sirens, that kind of environmental stimulation. You might have a very rich, complex inner life. Sensitive people tend to be highly creative. Really, some of us are actually very smart. Our brains are one of our very creative, very big thinkers, analytical, love to kind of go through the complexities of life and really understand life in a deep way. We might be made uncomfortable by loud noises. I already said that one. Deeply moved by the arts or music. Just generally very moved by beauty around you. Like I'm the kind of person, I'll be driving down the street and I'll see something beautiful and I have to pull over and I'll just stare at it like, oh, that's so beautiful. So you can get very overcome by beauty around you. People who are sensitive can be very conscientious, can be startled pretty easily, don't like to be startled at all, may get rattled when you have too much to do in a short period of time. Likewise, when maybe someone's asking you to do too many things at once, you might feel a lot of that time stress or overwhelmed by too many demands on your time at one point. You may really be conscientious in terms of avoiding making mistakes or forgetting things, which a lot of highly sensitive people are perfectionists and have very high expectations of themselves. You could become very hungry. Like being hungry can create a really strong reaction in you, and so a lot of people would suffer from what I call food moods, like they need to eat on a very regular schedule. Sometimes transition and change can be very difficult for you. So you may notice, like for me, I go on vacation and I could never understand why for the first few days in a new place, I would be completely unsettled and not having any fun. And then around day 3, I would kind of settle in and start to really be okay with it. So that's the kind of thing, like transition and change can be a little unsettling. You also may really arrange your life to avoid upsetting or overwhelming situations. And sometimes with, again, time pressure, like if you're being observed doing a task, you might not do as well as you would if you were off by yourself in your own time doing that same task. And then the final thing, which I think a lot of people would relate to, is if you're a child, did you get called sensitive or shy frequently? And for me, it wasn't shy, but definitely I got called sensitive all the time. And so those are about the 23 questions or traits of people who are highly sensitive. And if you have 12 or more of those, you would be considered highly sensitive. And so, for example, my husband would not be considered a highly sensitive person, but he has 10 of these traits. So you can still have sensitivity, but once you kind of the scales get tipped, you would be considered highly sensitive if you answered yes to more of those questions. And so for me, I have about 22 of those that I resonate with. The only one that luckily doesn't affect me is caffeine, so I'm really happy about that.
Oh, I'm happy about that because I drink about 3 cups a day.
I know, me too.
So that quiz will really help them, the quiz at thehighlysensitivebadass.com, that quiz will really help them tune in, answer the questions, and discover if they are at that tipping point.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And there's one I want to also say a word about empathy, high empathy. So empathy in general is just the ability to really put yourself in someone else's shoes and see something from their perspective and really understanding how someone else might be feeling. An empath is really somebody who absorbs someone's feelings as though they are their own, really sensitive to people's moods, get very affected by other people on a very deep level, both positively and negatively. And so all empaths are highly sensitive people, but not all highly sensitive people are empaths. So sometimes I throw that word empath around, so I just wanted to clarify what that is. And I'm kind of like a medium empath. I've met people who are like so empathic, it's really challenging for them. And other highly sensitive people wouldn't really relate to that. They're more grounded in their own energy and don't get quite as affected by absorbing other people's moods.
I'm glad you brought that up because as you were going through the signs, I wanted to ask you because I'm an intuitive empath. Mm-hmm. Okay. The difference, I was listening to the signs. I wouldn't call myself a highly sensitive person well, let me clarify it this way. Is there, because you read the book and you've done so much research, can you have been a highly sensitive person as a child and most of maybe your teen years, but then dive deep into the healing in spiritual and emotional healing so that you're not triggered as much? Because in the past, I really would have resonated with absorbing other people's emotions where it became muddy of what was my emotion and what was theirs. That no longer happens for me because I'm very grounded in my own energy now.
Yep.
So I'm an intuitive empath that has a lot of the signs or signs that that I could be and maybe at one time was, but I've transformed a lot of it. Have you had that experience or have done research on that?
Absolutely. I haven't done research on that, but that's been my experience, actually.
Okay.
And the reason I jumped into this work was because when I started health coaching, I knew right away that I should probably be working with highly sensitive people. But I knew that for me, I still was so, I was living kind of the shadow side of it still at that point, and I was like, I can't help anybody else because I'm still so overwhelmed by this, I wouldn't know where to start. But as soon as I started really going through my own journey of it was really the nourishment of the mind and the soul, like working on that and getting myself to a place where I was like really, my energy was really high, my vibration was much higher. I had this moment where I hadn't thought about the highly sensitive thing for months and months and months. And it came up again, and I was like, I don't think I'm highly sensitive anymore. And it was this really interesting moment where I was like, wait a minute, am I still highly sensitive? Is it possible that I'm not? And I really started paying attention to this, and I did realize that I'm still sensitive, and I'm still would consider myself a highly sensitive person, but I'm not living in the shadow side of it anymore. And so I still have the sensitivity, but I don't feel governed by the shadow side of the highly sensitive person, like being overwhelmed all the time, living in depletion, feeling drained constantly. And so I think that once you work on yourself enough, you can get to a place where you can kind of re-identify. You don't have to identify that way in the shadow side of it. You can live in the gifts. And I think where you probably are is living in the gifts of it, where you almost probably don't even notice the shadow side as much anymore.
No, and I know my body and spirit enough now. Like, I have strong energetic boundaries, and you know me enough to know my intuition is through the roof. It's how I birth everything is through that knowing. And I'm an empath and can hold space, and I have a large auric field from what I've been told by healers. That's why you can hold space for large events, whether they're virtual or whether they're live. But there was a time, and memory is just coming to me, when I used to produce live women's events back in 2008 and 2009, I can remember loving the birthing process, right? And the day would come for the big event, 300 to 400 women would come. And what I would love to do, Cortney, you would think that I'd be like, I want to be there, see it all. I like to be in the background, shadows, walking around without people knowing I was the hostess, right?
Right.
And I would love to watch, but other times I would go in the little area that me and my team would create, for storing stuff, for the event. And I would just sit and lay down for a little while. And I see now that what it was I had created such a big energetic container for this event that I had to process the energy because now I was walking into it.
Yeah.
And it was a joy. Don't get me wrong. It was always joyful for me, but I knew something energetic was happening. And then I would come out from the little storage area, and I'd walk around just being so grounded in my energy. But if I didn't take that time to integrate the energy of the people that were there, I would have struggled. I can see it now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes perfect sense. And that's exactly what I do on a regular basis. Like, I take breaks throughout my day and do those activities that nourish me and regenerate my energy so that I can show up for the other parts of my day. And so it could be as simple, like I did a workshop last night, and I was telling someone that if I am, in a busy place and I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll put my headphones in, go into the bathroom stall, and dance to music for 3 to 5 minutes, and just get, and move my energy. And so I think we do need to create that container where we can move that energy and process it, and creating those moments throughout your day, every day. That's why it's so important to have this practice of different nourish energy management, and high energy activities. So important to pepper those out through your day, every single day, and consistency is really important. But that makes total sense, and I think that it's once you get to know your blueprint a little bit better, you'll know how to do that more easily. But a lot of us don't even know we need that, and so we just go through life in constant overstimulation, and that's where we get into trouble, and we end up depleted and overwhelmed, and living in more the shadow side of it.
And I love that you said there is a shadow side to everything, just like in life. We have the moon and the sun. We have astrology. I may be a Scorpio, but there's dark sides of a Scorpio, and there's light sides. So just like with everything in life, when I know what you mean when you're talking about the dark aspects of being an HSP. And when we come back from our final break, I want to talk about some self-care tips that we can leave the listeners with, and any other guidance that you have. And we'll be back in a moment. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm Linda Joy, and with me is Cortney Chaite of thehighlysensitivebadass.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ladies, it's time to remove the veils of pain, shame, and self-doubt that are smothering your inner light and leave you feeling disconnected from the truth of who you are. You are a radiant, divine woman of strength, love, and wisdom who deserves to live a life of joy, love, and inner peace. Life and spiritual coach Mal Duane, who is often referred to as the champion for restoring women's self-worth, supports women in stepping out from behind the energetic veils that separate them from the truth of who they are. It is possible to move through your fears, break through limiting beliefs, and release the shackles of shame and self-judgment. And you don't have to do it alone. Take the first step in reclaiming your life by visiting malduanecoach.com for empowering resources and supportive services.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm Linda Joy, your host, and with me today is Cortney Chaite. And right before the break, we were talking about the importance of integrating, right, of learning to integrate and understand our energies so that we can heal different aspects of ourselves so we can show up fully in our lives, right? So for me, it was learning to shift and honor and feel my energy so I could show up more fully when I used to produce women's events, which is so funny, Cortney, because as you know, I'm stepping back into event production. So thank goodness I healed all this. So
important work.
Yeah, so let's talk. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier in the conversation, but I want to leave them with a couple things they can do other than taking that quiz, because that's a must. Go to thehighlysensitivebadass.com because I really believe, Cortney, that it will give the listeners so much insight into if this is them, because once you have that information, of yes, it is you, or no, it's not, that's empowering in itself.
It is, yeah, very.
So share a few tips that they can do easily starting today that would help them. I think I want to start with the energy thing, because I think that's where HSPs really struggle with, right? They feel like they're in the midst of a tornado and don't know how to stop and ground.
Yes. And it really is all energy. It truly is. It all comes back to energy, and it really comes back to how you feel and what makes you feel, alive and joyful and high energy, and what makes you feel depleted, run down. And so one of the things I love to have my clients do is create a list of the things that create that joyful feeling for them. Like, what are the things that bring you joy? Like, for me, it's listening to music is just hugely beneficial to me. Dancing, moving into my body so that I get out of my head and I get present in my body, because a lot of us really go around living in our heads all the time. Anything that can really ground you in your body is so important. So we talked a little bit about jumping on the trampoline, going for a walk, taking a bath, things that can shift your energy in a minute. Sometimes even like clapping or brushing your skin, with your hand can kind of regenerate your energy. But anything that really can make you feel better. And some of these are longer, some are shorter. Like going into the bathroom stall at work and listening to music can take about 5 minutes. But then going to a NIA class, for example, would be more an hour. And so there are definitely things like that you can add into your day, of making that list. Make sure that every day you're doing some of those things and that are going to raise your energy. Finding inspirational speakers. Like for me, if I'm in more of a negative headspace, I'll put on an Abraham Hicks video and I'll watch that, because for me that's just like, oh, right, there are great things in the world. It's just that reminder. So finding the things that lift your spirit, reading a book every day that's going to lift you up. And so I think that a lot of us spend some time feeling, in the more negative space or overwhelmed by negativity. So it's really, really important to fill yourself up with positivity as much as you possibly can. And that's also part of that energy management piece. And I lost my train of thought because I was going to say something brilliant, Linda.
Of course. And I have to tell you, I love what you said about doing something that lifts your spirits, like the books. I do that. I have audios that I turn to all the time so I can stay in a high vibration while I'm working, because I have a service-based industry, as you do, that I want to just love and serve. So that means it's my duty to keep my vibe high.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so important. Oh, and I remembered my brilliant thing, which is boundaries. So
big one.
Many people, yes. And that is, honestly, it's all about energy and it's all about boundaries. Sensitive people, I have overwhelmingly found out that we don't have very good boundaries. And so we tend to deprioritize ourselves and we prioritize everybody else and everything else. And learning to say no is one of the most empowering things we can learn how to do. So I talked about creating your list of things that make you feel good. Well, the other thing is creating a list of things that really drain your energy. And those are the things where you need better boundaries as a sensitive person. And learning to self-advocate, learning to tap into your intuition and asking, is this in my highest interest? And taking that moment before we say yes to everything is just taking that pause and finding out, asking yourself, is this going to drain me or is this going to make me feel really good? And once you start thinking in terms of those two polar opposites, you can start using your intuition a little bit more and tapping into, like, okay, you can become more of a detective. And so you can start going through your day and really paying attention to what made you feel good and what made you feel not so great. And then the not so great things, that's where we need to cultivate better boundaries. And so it really also comes down to self-love and acting out of self-love. And a lot of women struggle with that, struggle with feeling worthy, struggle with feeling like we deserve boundaries or that we deserve to take care of ourselves. And so working on that mindset is really, really, really crucial, because we are so worth that and we are worth taking care of ourselves. So when we start to do that and put these boundaries in place and working on our energy, then that's when our really amazing selves can come out of hiding and show up in the world, which benefits everything.
And I love the tips of, one, writing down everything that makes you feel good and joyful. I call it a joy list. I have when I really started. Yeah, and it was really important, like about probably 10 years ago when I first did that, to really try to focus on really defining what makes me feel good and what doesn't. And the reason is some of the things that where we have weak boundaries around, they're so habitual we don't even know that they don't make us feel good because they're so ingrained in us that by writing them down, we start to become conscious of them.
Right.
And you can only change what you're conscious of.
Exactly, yeah, and that's why awareness and just knowing about the sensitivity is really important because it does give you, it opens your mind to start paying attention to stuff. And so awareness really is the first step, awareness of what you're doing. And like you said, so much of our life is just habit. And when we really look at and start questioning our current habits, that's when you start noticing things. And when you notice them, that's when you can change them. So that's a really great point.
It's so true. And for me, I think you nailed it. That was a big one, especially in my 20s and 30s, of boundaries. And I think in my case, one of the blessings, and I'm seeing it now for me, was when Dana came into my life 22 years ago, because he was so grounded in his truth. And I was still struggling to define myself and didn't have boundaries because as a young woman, I would define myself by the relationship I was in. And how many women, raise your hand, know what I'm talking about? And he was so loving, kind, and gentle. I would say to him, I would give my power and say, well, we'll do what this is. He goes, no, I asked you what you would like to do. What's it matter what I want to do?
Yeah.
And then he would say things like, and at first I'd be like, what do you mean? And because I wasn't used to having my own voice, right, because I didn't have any boundaries, he helped me by holding his boundaries firm of saying, Linda, I want a partner. I don't want an extension of me. He goes, I see you as a butterfly. I still remember this, and if I don't cry, I'll be surprised. He said, he goes, you are a butterfly who hasn't come out of a cocoon, and when you do, you're going to be surprised by the brilliance of your wings. And I remember going, I don't want to come out of my cocoon. I like it this way. I wanted, yes, and that was, God, we've been together 22 years in December. And when you can find a partner or a friend or a coach, it doesn't, it's someone in your life who sees you for the truth of who you are. That's why I so believe in coaching, so believe in it. It is empowering to be seen for the truth of who you are instead of the stories and victimhood that we all have a tendency to carry around. And I was guilty of that too. I think we all are. It's part of the human experience. And so today's conversation really serves so many women, Cortney, so many individuals, men and women, but I know most of my listeners are women. And I want to thank you, for really stepping out, healing yourself so that you could step out and embrace your sacred gifts as a highly sensitive badass, because in doing so, look at what you're creating. You're creating a space and programs to give other women permission to heal and to step into their greatness. And that gives me such, just even say those words, you're sharing your gifts, and you're making an impact and a difference in other people's lives so they can then go out and share their gifts.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm so grateful that you were able to join me today to share your wisdom, your experience, and all your gifts with us. And I want to invite everyone. I want to give you that URL again, because that quiz is the first step, and that's at thehighlysensitiveBadass.com. Take the quiz, check out Cortney's blog, and you can also check out her 2 programs, The Highly Sensitive Lightworker. I'm one of those. And her other program, which comes from her own experience, as well as her training as a fitness and health coach, and it's Weight Loss for Sensitive Women Who Love to Eat. So thank you, beautiful. I'm so grateful for you today.
Thank you so much. This was really fun. I really appreciate talking to you today. This was great.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining me for Inspired Conversations. Listen in every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time for more sacred conversations with visionary, heart-centered women just like Cortney, who are here to share their feminine wisdom to support you in living your best life. For even more inspiration, claim your free subscription to Aspire magazine, which includes over 40 transformational gifts. You can do that at subscribe2aspire.com. Until next time, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.